Hi, my name is Peter Brella, and today I'm going to be talking about the Alaska State Capitol. Moreover, I'll be arguing why the capital should be moved from its current location to an area that is more accessible by state residents. Key points include the fact that movement of Alaska's capital will provide more jobs for Alaskans. It'll also cut back on the fees associated with employees who must be fed, housed, and then also their traveling expenses, however many times they must travel from their homes to the capital itself. And then it'll also allow Alaskans with the ability to participate more in the governmental process. So where exactly is the state capital? Well, it's located in Juneau, Alaska, and Juneau has about 32,000 residents, which mostly compose of fishermen and then also, of course, state employees who are simply there because that's where the capital is. But why is Juneau Alaska's capital? Because if one were to look at a list of all the most logical places to set up a important governmental office, Juneau would probably be pretty low on that list, if on that list at all. And that's because Juneau was originally actually Alaska's territorial capital, established in 1906. And this is because Anchorage and the Mat-Su Borough had not been established yet, much less built on, and so they weren't really options. And so whereas Juneau was already a well-established mining town, and it had a lot of potential to become much more influential if Alaska were to become a state. And it also had a much larger population than anywhere else, and it was close to the port of Seattle, which was really important at the time because Seattle was really the closest place outside of the wilderness of Alaska that people could go to kind of be in the outside world, and that was important. Plus, it was an option of trade for Alaska residents as well. So have Alaskans ever made any attempts to move Alaska's capital from its current location in Juneau to a place such as Anchorage or the Mat-Su Borough? And the answer to that is yes, actually. Since 1959, there have been more than half a dozen attempts to move the capital from its location to a more accessible place. And the most common argument as to why that is not a good idea is because it would be simply too expensive to do so. However, that doesn't make entirely a whole lot of sense because in 2002, when the last ballot measure to move the capital was denied, the government spent $30 million to renovate a weathered, old, falling apart 80-year-old Capitol building in Juneau. And a study, or not necessarily a study, but a report done by the State Office of Management and Budget stated that it would cost between $3 million to $45 million to simply move the entire capital from its location to a place such as Anchorage or the Mat-Su Borough. And whereas that seems like a lot of money, it really isn't compared to how much the government spent on simply renovating this one building, whereas the same amount of money could have spent to move probably the entire capital to Anchorage. So that argument doesn't really hold water. So what would be the pros of, so what if we move the capital? What would be the pros of doing so? Well, to start off, it would be more cost effective overall because it would be easier to maintain and upkeep. And also it would provide officials with more of an accessible way to get to the capital because there would be more infrastructure to support officials. And then finally, it would also allow more Alaskans to have jobs, and it would allow more Alaskans to participate in the governmental process. And the reason why that last option is probably the most important out of all the pros of moving the Alaska capital is because in 1959, on January 3rd, when Alaska became the 49th state of the U.S., under Article 8 of the Alaska Constitution, it states that Alaska would be an owner state. And the reason why this is significant is because an owner state means that it is kind of ruled by the population. So Alaska residents preside over the well-being of the Alaskans within. And furthermore, they are also the ones that control how the natural resources such as oil will be excavated and profited by all those including Alaskans. But how can Alaskans really participate in their natural right in how Alaska shall be, controlled when it takes a several-hour jet commercial flight from Anchorage, the closest city, to our state capital where we can actually participate in that process and view and give our opinions. So, that being said, how far away is Juneau really? Well, from Anchorage to Juneau and then back, it's about a $1,200 round trip, which is pretty far. And that would also be about a 3-hour round trip by jet commercial flight. And that would cost several $100s, not including how much it would cost to stay in the capital or how much it would cost to feed oneself. And furthermore, like many other places in Alaska, it's only accessible by boat or by plane, meaning that there's no roads particularly. But all of this convoluted process of trying to get to the capital is simply from Anchorage, but that doesn't include residents who would have to get to Anchorage first to then get to Juneau. So individuals who live farther away from Anchorage, which would mean that they would have to spend more money, more time, more energy to get to the capital. And this extends to elected officials as well, who must go to the capital because that is part of their job. Why is it that taxpayer dollars are used for their tickets, for their housing, for whatever that they may need on their travel expenditures? Why is it that those funds are pulled from taxpayer money when that money can be used for much more productive and more logical things? So, to conclude, Alaska's capital should be moved from its current location to an area that is more accessible by residents, because it is illogical to have a place in the far corners of the wilderness where a governmental office is held, and not just one governmental office, but a very important one in our state government. And that's the end of my presentation. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope that you are able to form your own opinion on whether Alaska's capital should be moved from Juneau to a place such as Anchorage or Wasilla. Thanks, and have a wonderful day.